I'm HeyWoah and I get asked this question a lot, so I decided to make a video. What army do you play? Beastclaw Raiders. What's that? The cool half of Ogre tribes. Show models. I'll cycle through pictures throughout the video, making of and final stuff, even though I could go back and touch things up, you always can. The theme for my army is American Ogres, based to be smashing other armies' terrain features. I like conversions, but I'm not the greatest painter, and that's fine, I like my dudes. Also, the leaders have little hats. Any other armies? Nope. Why did he pick them? Well, gather round, children, it's story time. The year was 2016, and my roommate at the time, Andrew Yells, now a great painter and still an avid AOS player to this day, said that I should watch a game of Age of Sigmar between him and his friend. The game's sweet, he said. Vampires versus Ironjaws. You know 40k? He asked. Yeah, of course. Awesome setting and art. You know Warhammer Fantasy Battles, though? He asked. Kinda. Yeah, that game died. Age of Sigmar is the WWE version of fantasy. In a stunning twist, they decided to make it fun to play. Also, it has better models than 40k. They're allowed to be more creative. This proved true, and so after watching a few games, I was hooked. I had initial trepidation over the double turn, but I love taking extra turns in Magic, so as long as there was a skill to playing around it, even if the event itself was a roll-off, I bet I could exploit it. After playing a game or two, this also proved to be true, and the household would tune in for Warhammer Weekly every Wednesday to keep up. The search for which army to play began. I did not find a helpful guide or video on this topic at the time, and my memory of this would later prompt me to make my own, and update the series each edition, which proved very successful, but that's a story for another time. I wanted to not paint hundreds of tiny triangles, so every Horde army was out. I also didn't want to move them 5 times a game, so Horde armies were even more out. Skaven were interesting as a faction, and Stormfiends were huge and cool, but in general their models were very old, they were mostly Horde, which was out, and if Stormfiends ever got bad, I'd be left with a bunch of stuff I wasn't fully into. Gotta plan ahead. On that note, I was thinking maybe Dragons or some other bookless faction, but I wasn't sure how their support would be moving forward. Gotta be a smart shopper. My rule of thumb in general for MMO character creation or D&D and other TTRPGs has been either choose the biggest, coolest thing or the cutest thing, no in-betweens. And nothing in AOS was cute in that way, so I was looking at Stormcast Paladins, maybe Ironjaws, but I'm not really an Orc guy, also Andrew already played them, and Beastclaw Raiders. Huge ogres that are all mounted on even huger beasts. Cool lore. Each model was essentially a foot hero. Fast, tempo gameplay. Since I was interested in learning to paint, they had every material type you could think of. Skin, faces, fur, hair, metal, leather, wood, bones, horns, they had it all. Didn't really like the Gutbusters, which at the time were an in-limbo bookless faction people weren't sure would have future support. The models were derpy, with poses like a big guy in a phone booth meant for a rank and flank square base game. Also stupid lore, with a certain type of ha-ha fart, Noblars wipe their ass style humor that struck me as cringe. Put them on woolly rhinoceros cavalry or mastodon missile platforms, maybe we'll talk. I heard they all used to be one army in the old game, but I was very happy to see they made an army out of only the cool half and dumped the stupid half. Years later, the joke would be on me, as they combined them back up to my chagrin, but this is a story about why I chose the army in the first place. The theme of taking a curse or brutal conditions and not only surviving them, but bending them to your will, mastering it, domesticating it, be it the beasts they rode or the Everwinter they used as a weapon, was entirely awesome to me. They also had one of the most brutal scorched earth repercussions of being on the march among Age of Sigmar factions. Like most, they'll kill everyone, but ogres will eat everyone as well, and their cattle and dogs and farm fields and grain silos, just everything. Then their Stonehorn eat rocks and metal, their houses, roads and bridges, burn their wooden structures down for massive bonfire potlucks, clean their teeth with the splinters of their churches, and when they leave, the eye of the Everwinter passes through it, turning the rubble and countryside into a 100-year glacier where nothing can live or grow. Now that's victory. So anyway, supposedly at the time you could slowly build up to getting into the game by playing Path to Glory or a Grow League 500-point games, 1K games, but those clearly sucked, and I was interested in Age of Sigmar, the 2,000-point wargame. I wasn't trying to play chess with half the pieces. If it took me a while to build up to 2K, then it would take me a while to build up to 2K. Who cares? I played with proxies and empty bases with Andrew and his friends until I finished. Took a few months maybe. Years later, I would learn that this is abnormal behavior, but I had fun and wasn't rushed and got to try before I buy, so I didn't waste money. Therefore, it is my opinion that mine was the correct way. Even more so now that we have Tabletop Simulator, which wasn't really a thing back then. Be a smart shopper. On gameplay, Beastclaw Raiders was high in the running for worst faction in the game. At the time, they were tied with Flesh Eater Courts for which was the worst army that still had a book. The way you won back then was on objectives, and monsters captured one. So you simply could not ever win unless you tabled the opponent. But your guys were massive. Stone skeletons halved all damage, run and charge monster trucks moving 20 odd inches a turn, high damage Frostlord weapons, mortal wounds on attacking, mortal wounds on impacts, mortal wounds on reflected 6s to save, blood vultures, pulsing from Everwinter. The whole army was a whirlwind of mortal wound chip damage. Plus, Thundertusks had straight 6 mortal wound laser beams to snipe foot heroes since you didn't have any. Essentially, you were overpowered in all the ways, except the way that the game cared about for winning. So you almost always lost, but had a great time. I think there was a period of time, somewhere in GHB 2017, where the highest record worldwide for Beastclaw at an event that tracked statistics was 3-2, one of which was me. My other results that season were 0-5, 1-4, and 2-2-3s. Now, tracking data of AOS games was barely in its infancy at this point, and game balance has come a long, long way since then. But remember my rule: get yourself an army you can lose with and still enjoy. Get yourself a game you can lose with and still enjoy. I like my dudes. I've played them for 7 or 8 years? Can't wait to play them in 4th Ed. Thanks for watching. I stream tonight. Buy a shirt, will ya?